I can't wait. I want to go back.
His daughter is taking care of
Aren't necessarily
All right, I might as well get like a name take on there.
Where you're sitting. Stuff has to be. Yeah.
Was that?
I said something because I can't tell because by the time I get those, it's not all I can never tell. But I know it's not. And I also thank you.
Yeah.
People have done that. There's not a thing I can say. Yes. And then all it does is make me think about what I see. So I said, you're not coming up here and telling me. That's happening.
I don't believe so. Pick up on there. Because every time I touch the table,
So I did. And the stickies on the other side, and introduce the
Check, check. Check, check. Check. Nothing. Hold on. Do we got it?
yeah, no, we don't.
Okay. How do you have me now?
You're good.
Okay.
You coming from the speaker, Ken?
driving up here for 3 hours is no big deal. Ken, you want me wearing that during my motion, or
No, you can have it. We got a handheld down here
give
too.
me a handheld?
Yeah, if that's okay. Okay.
You take it all home. That's what I'm saying. After I do my devotion, I can go home and sleep. But I also think it might be good for me to be here. Huh? Come on. I did it to have us sing. Plus, then I wouldn't have all the hymns down here. Unless you have it memorized.
Well, I think I'm going to get started here. If I haven't introduced myself to you already, my name is Ken. Is there an echo?
He
All right. Where's that coming from? Is that good?
Better. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's what happens when I'm doing all these different ways of doing things. Yeah, appreciate you being here. My name is Ken Cerny. I'm here from Christ Evangelical Lutheran Church here, right here where you're at. I am also have the Ken Small Church Tech YouTube channel, and I somehow developed a connection with a company called FoMaKo. At least that's how I pronounce it. And they kind of challenged me to find a way to give away a bunch of their cameras. But I do like their equipment. I have plenty of it on my own that they've sent me, and I've done reviews for, and there's good and bad with everything that I do, and I try to point that out, and you'll see some of that today. Just like having an echo when you didn't think that you had a sound that was going in that direction. And so thank you for coming here. I know everybody has a lot of questions, and that's what this is going to be about, is answering questions. We don't have all the answers, and some of the answers you won't like, because we're going to throw it right back at you. Okay, so I'll let the different people talk about those as we go, but by all means, ask questions. We hopefully worked enough free time in to have some time so you can just talk, and talk to people that are working this already, talk to those who are brand new and trying to get things figured out. What are they doing? Why are they doing it? Why are we doing it? And so on and so forth. So let me do one of these weird tech things and do a little swap here of the video. There are so many things that you can do with technology, and there's so many different companies out there. You will get confused, and you will get frustrated, and you will get just crazy sometimes at how complicated you can make things. You will hear often today from everybody that's talking here, keep it simple. Try to keep it simple, because it's really, really easy, and you can see all the technology laying around, and we left that out on purpose so that you can see some of the things that you can use. But it's really easy to get out of control with technology, and you lose focus of why you're actually doing this. So as we go, and let me actually bring this up this way. As we go, you will see just how difficult that sometimes can be. And it's going to be not working for you from time to time. So it'll get, even no matter how well you've got this figured out, things will not work for you. So again, welcome. If you haven't figured out where the bathrooms are, men to the left, women to the right there, right at the exit sign. There's also 2 more upstairs that you can do. Exits out this way. We do have an exit out the back door if you need it. And please help the housekeepers by just picking up your stuff and throwing it in the garbage. And I'm really talking about help my wife, who cleans up down here. So I'll hear about it. Also, I want to thank the fellowship committee for putting together the breakfast this morning, and they'll be here and give you some lunch also. So thank you very much for your time. And then I want to also thank the volunteers who just came here on their own to talk to you and help you out and help figure this out. All I did was put out a request on, if you've seen WELS Intersection Facebook group, I said, hey, this is what I want to do. Is there anybody out there that would like to do this with me? And I got 4 people here to do this. I'm going to go with Donovan first because I always forget his name. So Donovan's in the back. I got Philip up here. I got Derek over here and John right here. And we talked about this 3 or 4 times by team meeting. And that was great. We had a lot of good interaction, some emails back and forth, and then we showed up, 3 of us showed up yesterday, 3 showed up yesterday, and we just geeked out as we started listening to each other talk. So there's a lot of knowledge in this room, and those 4 people really have more. I am the stupid one when it comes to when I discovered yesterday. I know a lot about some of the, how to push buttons and how to make things work and how to do some videos, and I try to make it simple as I can. but they got really a lot more in-depth knowledge of it. So the sponsors today, Christ Lutheran here for allowing me to do this, FoMaKo for providing some cameras and also some support, and actually for forcing me to start a YouTube channel called Ken's Small Church Tech. If you go to that, this is going live right now to that channel. At least I hope it is. And so that people can share this. And we kind of kept it small initially, and we went live we actually went public with that link just this morning because we really didn't want this just to be out there for everybody yet. We just wanted to kind of make this work for us. And I already got the people supporting us. And so why are we here? I know there's a bunch of different reasons why you're here. Some are here just for a camera, and that's actually that was one of the hooks. Okay, I threw that hook out there. The camera that you're looking at here is the one up here on the up in front here, and so you can look at this and we can talk about that. We'll bring it up on the camera from time to time. Donovan and while he's doing his stuff, we'll demonstrate that camera even more when it gets to his workshop. How do you plan to use live streaming to support your ministries? Because that's really what technology should be about. If the technology doesn't support your ministry, chuck it. It's not good. Okay? So how do you get it to do that? You either got to stop using it, go back to the basics, or figure out how to make it work for you. So it really depends on what you're trying to do. Are you trying to reach homebound? We have several people that we reach every Sunday because they're not going to be able to get here to church. And so that's really a big thing that we have. Now we had an infamous Sunday morning with 8 people in the church and 30 online. Okay, so we now had 30 people, and that was great. That's exactly why we were doing it. I live 5 minutes away from here. I fought the snow, got in here, so did a few other people. And then Pastor walked across the way. He almost didn't make it. But he got here. And we had a good service. But that really helps. Travelers. People get to know you by traveling. I went out to California for a conference for something else, and I happened to have a Sunday that was free because the flight got me in on Saturday. I checked out the services that were in the area so that I could stop in, and I found it. I'm going, well, this is kind of interesting. So I just sent an email to the pastor, said, hey, I'm going to be there. You are at this time, correct? And he said, well, that day, no. We had a big potluck going on and a big festival going on at the church. It's like there was an international festival, so everybody's bringing international foods. So I grabbed a couple bags of cheese curds and I took them with me, and I participated in their festival. So you get to know people that are looking for you, seekers, those people that are out there looking for a church. They show up once in a while too. Guests. They know you're here because there's something about you out there. People do look at these first times, and a few first encounters just kind of come up because of them seeing Pastor online. And we also take our video and we shorten it down to 30 minutes, which then gets put out the following week as an audio on the local radio station. So we've had people that actually stopped in and said, okay, so you're the voice that we hear on Sunday mornings. So that's kind of neat too. So that actually comes from the same video. What are the goals today? Your goals should all be a little bit differently, but what we're trying to do is help you understand just simply the core concepts. We're not going to teach you how to make this work for you and your church because we don't know the situation that you have, but hopefully the concepts are going to be there. We're going to talk about practicality and budgetary and budgets. What I like about the FoMaKo brand is they are more of a budget type of a brand, but they also have some not so budget type of equipment too that does have some of those higher end things that you might want. The one that you're getting here is a budget camera. It has HDMI out, it has USB out, so you can connect either way, either one of those ways, and it has NDI, which seems to be really popular lately. Those are all ways you can get the video from that, and so you can use that as a starter for whatever it is that you're trying to do. The one back there in the corner there is a little bit higher end. It has SDI, HDMI, USB. It's got all kinds of ways to get the information out. You can actually record right on that camera. You can have audio going in. I mean, there's all kinds of things that will do that this one won't, but do you really need that? So that's what I want you to think about. You're going to learn from live demonstrations. I know Donovan's going to rip apart his setup there and put it all back together for your demo. So he's going to do that 3 times. He's getting really good at it. Derek is doing the same thing with OBS in the back, or very similar to that, but he'll walk you through the steps of setting up OBS. Hopefully not as fast as what he was demonstrating for me yesterday, because he was in the, okay, boom, 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 and I'm going, oh, right, what did you just do? I've used OBS, and I couldn't follow quite as fast as he was moving through the different menus on that. So that can get a little bit overwhelming, but it's free. So maybe overwhelming, once you get used to it, is not so bad. So we'll learn from live demonstrations. We're going to leave the next steps of this to you. So we're going to give you things to think about. And that's something that for you to take back and look at it in your church and figure out what it is that you're going to do and how you're going to do it and how it's going to make it work in your situations. Because we're all very different. The things that we had to do upstairs were done because of the shape, the size, the lighting, the audio, which is something we're still fighting with. Those are things that we have very unique to this place. And everything that you have are going to be unique too. Lower ceilings, higher ceilings, different lighting setups. It's all different. Acoustics. So that's going to be part of that. So today, we're going to talk about things right here. So you're welcome to continue to graze all you want. We'll take times in between. I'm going to talk here. I'm going to stop talking here in a little bit. And we'll eventually turn you over to Philip and John and let them talk about the why and the how. And then I'm going to come back and talk a little bit more about the technology itself. So we'll get there from a couple different places. All these fancy backgrounds, I didn't do that. Okay, so again, technology can kind of get in your way. This is an AI thing. But we're going to have lunch. Then we got 3 demonstrations that we're going to rotate you through. So we'll break you up into 3 groups and try to keep, if you want to keep people that you want to talk to together so that you can talk about things as you're going through. That's probably the best way, but we'll break you up into 3 groups and get you through a hardware demonstration, a software demonstration, and audio, and then a little bit of workflow. And speaking of workflow, Colleen here is another one I forgot to talk about. She's my right hand here at church here because she took my meandering way of teaching things and put it into a logical step-by-step and created a workflow checklist for the volunteers here. So she'll talk a little bit about that upstairs with Philip a little bit. But it's something that you got to think about also. How do you get people who really don't know what you're talking about to be able to help you easily? So how do you get volunteers? And who are those volunteers going to be? Some will come with a lot of experience and they'll want to make the changes themselves. And that might be a good thing. And she's done that for me. Some will come with not as much experience and be totally afraid of everything. They don't want to touch anything because they're afraid it's going to break. And it might. That's the scary part. But these are all things that you got to kind of work through. And I know you're frustrated just like I was, and that's a good thing. We're going to do a camera distribution a little bit later, and after that we'll do the closing remarks and questions and answers. So those that need to get out of here a little bit earlier can do that, and then we'll just do question and answer and try to answer your final questions towards the end of the day. But we'll do the distribution just a little bit before that, again, so that those that need to hit the road can hit the road. But that's the whole idea for today, is make this, ask questions. We'll try to answer them as best we can. But the bottom line is we're going to ship it all back on your shoulders to take back with you. The one thing we did talk about a little bit, which maybe we'll get this cranked up, is maybe thinking about starting a Facebook group for this group here, and maybe for people in the future, so that people can come and ask questions, especially of WELS and ELS churches, so we kind of know who we're talking to and what we're talking about, and talk about whatever. So that's not there yet, but we have all your emails, so that's great. Now, just thinking about emails, did everybody initial that you're here, so that I know who's here? Go ahead and send that around. Just initial by your name, so I know who's all here. Okay, we got 17, not counting my folks here. That's good. That's the kind of where I thought we were going to be. It works out. So, yeah, welcome for being here. And how to get the most out of today? Ask questions. I've already said that many times because that's really what we want. Compare notes with others. Think about your volunteers. That's going to sometimes be the common denominator that you have to live up to. I was telling somebody a little while ago, my background is going through the Army and then flying helicopters. A lot of technology involved in the things I did, but I was the computer guy in the office because I had a computer early on. And my goal has always been to try to make technology simple enough for the All right.
There you go.
My goal has always been to, you can turn that down a little, down another thing. There you go. My goal has always been to bring technology and craziness to the least common denominator in that office, to the one that has the hardest time making it work. And that's what I'm trying to do here. So, like I said, the bottom line is if you can't make it work for you, then you need to get rid of it. Budget, that's everybody's problem. I don't know of a church that doesn't have a budget and tries to overspend it. Building layout, again, I talked about that. Your church is going to be different than ours. There's some things that I was able to do, sometimes with audio, to get audio from different locations, and they'll show you that upstairs. And of course, the internet. So we went from the cheapest spectrum internet here, then we upgraded to the, I don't know what they called it, the next level, which allowed 10 megabits upstream upload, and it was barely holding on. So we were making it work, but it wasn't working great, and once in a while we had a little problem. And then Frontier Fiber suddenly showed up in the area, and we jumped on that, and so now we're running at 500 up and down, and that's not an issue anymore. However, getting it to there sometimes can be. So once in a while, YouTube says, "Oh, we don't know what you're doing," so it just sits there and does the little loopy loop. It happens. So internet, you're going to fight with it. My daughter put in some Starlink at her house. That was pretty interesting. Might be an interesting way to do it if you're kind of out someplace that needs a little bit extra help. So ministry first. It's really about that. The goal is to get the word out. It's not to be technical. The technology behind it is the tool. Reliable access, faithful service to people who can't be present. That's really where we're at. And I want to keep reiterating that if I can. We can get really wrapped around the technology. It's so easy to do. Support the message, and technology is only a tool. If that tool doesn't work for you, then find a different tool. Start with what you can. And lastly, beware of using AI. And I'm going to set up Pastor for his little part here with the next picture. What's wrong with AI? How many fingers does that hand have? That's correct.
Six-fingered.
The six-fingered man. Yep, we found him. But all we did was find his hand. With that, you got the mic there?
Yeah.
Thank
You'll
you.
have to turn yours off.
Hand that to Pastor. I'll turn mine off. And
Jack?
turned on. Sorry.
Well, I gotta turn on.
His was still on.
Check. Can you hear me? I am the one that's the voice on the radio station 96.3, 8 o'clock. Welcome. I am Pastor Neil Boehm. I've been privileged to serve here at Christ Lutheran since May of 2019. And, well, Ken, a lot of stuff I'm going to be saying in my devotion, you already mentioned it. So if it sounds like it's repeating, him and I didn't work together and what we're all going to talk about. But we're going to focus on God's Word from Romans chapter 10. Paul writes, "How then can they call on the one they have not believed in? And how can they believe in the one of whom they have not heard? And how can they hear without someone preaching to them? And how can they preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. Consequently, faith comes from hearing the message, and the message is heard through the word of Christ." So I don't come from a family line of pastors. I'm the first one in my family to go in the ministry. My dad, who is now retired, was a computer programmer for 40 plus years. And so as a kid, I would regularly ask my dad, how was work? And one of my favorite responses from my dad was just two words, and it would be Murphy's Law. And if you know anything about Murphy's Law states that if anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. And that easily applies to technology. We have already kind of seen that here with Ken and his microphone. I was cutting in and out, and we pray that, hopefully Murphy's Law doesn't keep happening here. But maybe in your congregations, people might be saying like, well, that's one of the reasons we shouldn't be doing live stream, because if anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. So why even do it? Or maybe people in your church are thinking, well, why should we start doing live streaming when it's going to maybe encourage our members to stay at home instead of coming here to worship? Maybe people in the congregation might be thinking, well, why even start live streaming? Because it's going to cost us money, and that's another thing that we have to budget. People might be saying, why should we start live streaming when we're not going to have the manpower to take care of it? But going to what Paul wrote in the book of Romans, his point was that faith comes from hearing the message. And that's why he says, how beautiful are the feet of those who come and bring good news. Because back in his day, the only way he could share the good news of Christ was by speaking it or by writing it. And we still have that to this day. And as Ken pointed out, live streaming and technology, it's a tool. You're not a successful church because you have live streaming or great technology. What makes a church great is preaching and teaching God's word, its truth, and purity. But who knows that if Paul were living today, he might have said, how beautiful are the feet and the live streaming of those who bring good news. And when it comes to those issues that I brought up, and they are valid issues, we're dealing with the issue of we're going to encourage members to stay at home. If that does become an issue, let the board of elders and the pastors talk to those people and encourage them to keep coming to worship. When it comes to the issue of, this is going to cost us money, well, that's why you're here, practically, to receive the camera and the equipment just to easily start doing this. When it comes to the issue of, we don't have the manpower to do it, tap into the younger generation. I mean, they live on technology. And we have a young teenager right now who's helping out with the playlist in our Monday evening services. And from what I can understand, she loves it. They can take ownership of something here. And yeah, Al's not here. His wife's here. I mean, Al, he old dog, can't teach him new tricks, but it still can happen with the older generation. But also think about the good that can be done with live streaming that, once again, as Ken brought up, your shut-ins. From visiting shut-ins, one of the things I constantly hear is they would give up everything they could just to be in worship again. And live streaming is not the same as being in worship. But from what I can tell, they love being able to hear the sermon and to sing the hymns and to read parts of the liturgy at the same time as the rest of the congregation. You think of visitors, that we live in a day and age that they may not even come to your church first until they watch maybe a live stream to see just what is it like. how are people are dressed? What can I expect? And then maybe they may come to your church to hear God's word. And then you also don't even know or can comprehend the people you can reach out to. I don't know if, Ken, you are going to mention this or not, but one of our videos during COVID, all of a sudden, a guy from Denmark left a comment on our YouTube video. I have no idea how on earth he ever found us, but he left a comment. And so you have no idea that maybe with your live streaming, the people you may reach out to, and possibly that person who just watches your video, hears God's word, can be brought to faith and be saved. And that's God's job to do that. He makes the word work. Our job is simply to sow the seed of God's word with live streaming or without. But we pray to God that your time here will be a blessing and that this is a tool that can be used to help us share the word of God. And so I just pray that it's edifying, and then whatever we do, God's going to bless it. Amen. So, I don't have 6 fingers, but let us bow our heads in prayer. Dear Lord God, we thank you that you have revealed your word to us, showing us that Jesus Christ is our Savior from our sins. We thank you that you have brought us to faith in our Savior. And you have called upon us to be jars of clay, carrying this wonderful message and to share it with others. Help us to always do this regardless of the technology that we may have. But as we speak the word of God, make it grow so that more and more people can be brought to faith and have eternal life with us. In your name we pray. Amen. So Ken, I will hand it back to you. Is that correct? Or okay. Just thank you all for being here and safe travels home.
Take about a 5-minute break here, and then I'm going to turn this over to Phil and John and let him do a little bit of talking for you. So take a short break.
I just saw that.
One time to share the yeah. That other one I think was I was dropping the frequency.
Oh, so it's okay.
It'll work great for
Testing and when I'm doing my reviews and stuff like that, I use it all the time. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, no, but it was true all over it.
I was showing the cameras when you were talking about
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I'll talk more about that later.
So the first 2 days it was like a staycation at my parents' house. And then Friday, so last week Friday, that's when I got together with my college friends. We do it once a year. One of my friends was being installed in that in Wauwatosa. So it was also kind of like a bachelor's night in the sense of, once you become a pastor, you're going to have less freedom. So the Friday night was really us staying up until 3, 4 in the morning.
It's a 608N.
Having fun.
This brand new.
Saturday we went to the Brewers
Just
game.
coming out. So
We
we
won like
that
8
to do this.
and 3 against the Rockies, or 8-5.
We've been having a great time playing with it. Full screens, touch screen. It does have NDI, but
And
really
then
NDI
Sunday
doesn't really
was
help
the installation.
that much.
And then I came back home
When I read through the user manual,
to my hometown friend. He only had one night that he could hang out with me.
Visco.
So Sunday night was the typical, we play Xbox, we play
Yeah, so that's
GTA
interesting.
stuff.
So it's, they keep saying here, we've got
Monday I
NDI.
hung out
There might
with
be
him
a
the rest
reason
of the
for
day.
NDI that really is helpful.
Came back Tuesday, we went up to Green Bay
If you already have a cable.
because training camp started.
Right.
So Wednesday,
So
the
that's just
whole
gonna
family got together to watch.
Sony Visco is what it is.
Played mini golf.
Yeah.
It's just like, I can't do
already
this.
connected.
Thursday was coming back to the street sermon.
NDI.
Friday I drove back to work. So it's like, one of those things where you can like, I was a lot easier on vacation than I was. Kind of went on. So, anyway, Ken, couldn't help but see, I think you have the classic Easter meal out there. Okay. On the other hand, it's like a s'more.
Good to have somebody with timing might be a little off.
Yeah, thank goodness we missed that one game, 16-2 or whatever it was.
All right.
What
We'll get
happened
back
there?
to, we'll get back to this. I'm gonna turn this over to Philip. You got the hand mic there? That good enough for you? I'm gonna turn mine off, let you turn it on, and I'm gonna get out of your way.
Good morning. How's everybody doing? How many of you currently have some sort of live streaming set up in your church? How many of you have no live streaming or recording set up? Nothing? Kind of? Okay. Cool. That will kind of dictate a little bit how we talk about things and go over things today. The original concept for us for this part of the talk was talking about the myths of live streaming and stuff. Are we good on audio? Perfect. Awesome. And it was, I thought about this for quite some time to come up with like what are the myths actually for this, and like what are the maybe some of the misconceptions, and I kind of boiled it down to two, and one of which we have already talked today, and I think you're going to hear a lot more about as we keep kind of going through things. Is the one myth is there's no one solution. Every church is unique, every situation is unique, and God has given all of us amazing, unique talents and abilities. And so the four people you have kind of presenting here today, along with everyone else who's here, there's 100 different ways you could do stuff, and they're all correct. So if I tell you one way to do things, and somebody else here tells you, no, you should do it this way, those are both correct, wonderful ways to do things. Feel free to get a second opinion. And part of how you decide to do this and how you decide to work really depends on the people who are running the system. And maybe even depends on you. If I tell you how I would do something and you're like, that is not how my brain works, like that's okay. You don't have to do it my way. So that's one of the big things to keep in mind as we're working through stuff here is we live in a society where there's so much tech. Like just getting a signal from a computer over there to this TV here, I can think of probably 4 different ways to do that, all of varying complexity, and all have trade-offs. So all of the different systems we're going to talk about today, there are potential trade-offs with that. Like, yes, this will do this thing, but maybe you have to watch out for this, or maybe you could do this, but you'll have a little issue when you do things that way. So probably talk more about that as we keep going here. And then the other big main kind of, I don't know if it's really a misconception, but the thing I'm going to kind of fight against, and I think some of my other panelists here will do as well, is budget doesn't come first. Oftentimes, that is one of the 2 questions. I've worked with dozens of churches at this point, many in WELS, ELS churches, a bunch that are not ELS or WELS, and that's one of the first things. Is like, we want to live stream, so what do we have to buy? And we have a budget, what should our budget be, or this is what our budget is. And if that is how you want to operate, I can 100% operate in those confines. but it's going to change the interaction and it's going to limit how you're able to do things. If you come to me and say, I have $2,000, we have to get live streaming up, well, I can spend that $2,000 very, very easily. I can spend $2,000. If you have $100,000, I can spend that very, very easily. Doesn't matter. But it's going to change how we do things. And so what I have found better is you talk about the needs and your desires and your wants first, and then you come into what that it would actually cost to do, because then that gives you what you actually want and what you actually need in the end, and not like what you can afford. Because many of these systems, we can build piece by piece if we have to. But if you start with budget and we build something and then it doesn't do the one thing that you later wished it would have, then we have to throw it all out and start over. Not always, but you know, if you build something with the wrong limitations, that's what you kind of run into. So those are kind of the two things, two main myths I'm hoping to kind of talk through today. My hope here, I think we have, well, we were given like an hour and 10 minutes, and we're starting like 20 minutes early. This is a very strange conference. If we're like, usually it's the other way, we're 20 minutes late. So I have built out a little, somewhere here, I have too many sheets of the same page. You should have a simple streaming onboarding sheet. So this is kind of what I'm going to hopefully walk you through today. If you have questions as we go, please let me know. And if any of the other panelists here think I misspoke or want to jump in with some other knowledge, please do. So yeah, feel free to ask questions. I like saying things as statements. I find that sometimes that's a little bit more helpful than questions. And so I've come up with 6 statements that you can kind of finish the statement here. And then underneath are a bunch of other statements which are really questions hiding as statements to kind of talk things through. And so if you came to me and you said, Philip, I want to do live streaming in my church, this is kind of what I would walk you through. These 6 questions are kind of the same question from a slightly different viewpoint and a slightly different angle. And they're, again, all going to be completely unique for your church. So the first thing I'm going to do when we talk is I'm going to ask why. Like, what's the purpose behind this? Because that really gives a good direction. If you're looking to just hit members who are at home, that's going to be different than if you're trying to also publish little shorts or little clips of your sermon. There's many churches who will take their sermon and using various pieces of software, clip out little lines and phrases, post it to social media. That's a completely different workflow than just hitting stream at the beginning of the service and hitting stop at the end. Facebook will only archive your video, your live streams for about 90 days now, I think, unless they've shortened that. So if you put a live stream out on Facebook, it'll be there for 3 months and then go away. Some people are very sad about that. I don't think old content lives on Facebook. Facebook is all about new content. So if you have something that's 3 months old, no one's going to see it. YouTube will archive that stuff for as long as they exist. They've been not said anything about shutting that down. But that said, like, maybe it's beneficial to have recordings, backups of certain things, and maybe you want to post those online somewhere. Ken already talked about the different types of demographics you might want to have see your videos. Are you reaching out to new members? Are you reaching out to community members? Are you trying to reach people in Denmark? Like, it all, like, everything's an option, and it's kind of where you want to head to. So start with why, kind of consider your audience, and you start to think about your end goals. What are you going to do with this video? Is it just going to live online? Are you going to edit it? Do you have to make DVDs to send to your local TV station? Are you editing the audio so it can go on the radio? These are all like why you want to do stuff. Personally, I don't. Some people say, well, everyone else is doing it. I don't think that's a bad reason to do it. And I might be like, maybe other people disagree with me, and that's okay. But there is an expectation now that churches are live streaming. So it is possible there are people in your community who are like, oh, well, that church doesn't live stream, so I'm not even going to give them a second look. I don't know. That is another thing to think about. I talk really fast. Is everybody doing? Am I talking too fast? Are we going through this? Any questions so far? Cool. So once you kind of go through why you want to stream and you start talking through all of that part, then I would suggest talking about when it's done. So when everything is finished, we want to be able to fill in the blank. And this is a little bit more, this is kind of building on one, your wants and your desires, but we're starting to think about end products. Like, what is the process going to be like? Do you want to hit a button and then be done? Are you planning on touching this more afterwards? Do you have an intern or someone whose job it is to actually edit this down and post it? Are you putting descriptions on things? Yeah, this is just a lot of all the different things you want to be able to do with the recording or the live stream, but also kind of what you want to do in the space. Like, when we're done, we want to be able to put this video in the narthex, or we want to put it in the cry room, or we want to send it across campus to the gymnasium so that we can have overflow seating there. So the kind of the spatial demographics as well is also super important.
So the other thing is there are a lot of people who are live streaming. There's a lot of people, other churches that have systems. And so it is valuable to go out, see what other people have done. There are some that do it really well. There are some that really don't. So looking at those examples and how and you hate to talk about just how it makes you feel, but you kind of want to know, how does it make you feel when you see these different, how other people are doing it? As you're traveling, it is good to go, if you're out traveling, go visit other churches to see on Sunday, how are they running their services? What does it look like inside? So take that opportunity to experience and see it, and that's how you can get a better idea of what's even possible. Because that's also a challenge. There's so many different ways to do things. How do you even know what's possible? So go and see what people are doing to understand those options. Yeah.
Give an example of someone you think does it really, really well. So we're looking at a blank sheet of paper, like, who would you point to and say, hey, look at what they do, just for different ideas.
I mean, I'm partial to my own church, Peace Lutheran Church in North Mankato, but I would like to think that we do a pretty good job. I'm trying to think. Every time I connect with a church, I subscribe to their YouTube channel. So I have there are times where I go on YouTube and there's just tons of new services and stuff online that I can kind of look at. And there are a lot of places that are doing really well. But even the places that are just have a static camera pointed at the pulpit, some of those are really good too. And I think part of that is just because we're getting good sermon messages from our wonderful pastors in the WELS and the ELS. So do you have...
I'll say I'm a little partial to my churches as well, but because I put it together. But but a little is that because I haven't seen any. I don't have a one that I really like that I say, okay, this one is done well. But what I did do, and I had other members, or specifically one other one that she put all the PowerPoints together and did some of the background stuff for years, that as we were getting started, we went out and we looked at a lot of different YouTube church live streams and said, oh, I really like what this one is doing here. Is there a way we could do that? Or, oh, this looked really clean, like the way that the text for the scriptures was up there. Can we do that? And we can always find, there are a lot of ways to solve the problem and get there, but we probably had 30 different YouTube or different live streams that we were pulling from different ideas and pieces. And yeah.
One of the things that I try to do with my stream is I want the people watching online to kind of feel like they are in the space. And so one of the things, I wish I had more time in my schedule, but one of the things I like to encourage people to do is to watch your live stream from home. Like if you have a recording of it, watch it from home and see how it is. It wasn't like our audio was a little noisy for a while, and I don't hear that noise when I'm in the church because the noise is coming from a different box that I'm not listening to or something, or and there's elements of at my church I try to put it on camera as much as possible. Even when there's hymns being done, I try to put the camera feed behind the hymns a little bit so people can see that there's stuff going on in the church. My dad watches his church online. During communion, there is a white screen that says communion. And from being at home, he doesn't know what's going on. All he sees is a white screen, and that bothers him. But the people who are running the stream, I'm sure they're wonderful people. And I'm like, this isn't necessarily a wrong way to do it, but it does change the dynamic of the people watching at home. So trying to think about some of those things as well.
Like, would you, during singing hymns, would you have a video camera pointing at the congregation so people can see other people singing, that kind of thing? Or for communion, would you say they should just show people receiving communion?
Yeah, I would say totally do that. There is some controversy on whether you show people's faces or not. So whether the camera's pointing back at the audience or the congregation or pointing forward, that's again up to your congregation how people feel about being on camera like that. But yeah, I think I had another church I helped. We set up a nice system that for their live stream, they wanted to show the PowerPoint slide with the little picture-in-picture in the corner that showed the pastor or the church. And that, again, wonderful way to do it. I might have tried to flip those so that the church picture is bigger, but then you can't read the text on the screen.
More and more too, you need to have there's some parents don't want their kids being filmed. Is there something that we need to do as a church for that, or not really?
I think it's important to tell everybody that this is what we're going to be doing. It would be possible if you do have people who are sensitive to that to have a designated like blackout zone where it's like, hey, if you sit in these pews, the only thing we might see is the back of your head, but other than that, like do this. You might run into issues with children's sermons or devotions, stuff like that. So I mean, just making sure that people are aware of it, I think, is important, and then coming up with your congregation's policy on that.
For everybody, but we did kind of educate we built a new worship sanctuary. We were worshiping in the gym for like 20 years, and we finally have a new worship sanctuary, and we have a live stream set up and so forth. But to the point you're getting at, we actually put something in our worship folder stating we are going to be using video feeds for it may contain different people in it. If you have an issue with it, please see the pastor in advance, and then we can adjust things accordingly.
Yeah, the other thing that we had done in our church was to, for a couple of reasons, we use our live stream as actually what we put up on the projectors within the worship as well. There's some other reasons we did that, but part of it was everybody knows and can see what's going out. So if you're in church, it's very clear to say, am I on the live stream? Am I not on the live stream? Everybody could see it. So there was to make that awareness there. So wouldn't have to put it on the screen, but just another way to give awareness to.
So do they have to kind of avoid the camera then, or like how does that work if someone did one?
So in our congregation, the video, like you'd have to be if you're in the first pew, so it's usually not an issue. But you'll see the back of somebody's head, and then, so for communion, we will pan up, so you might see the top of some people's heads for the taller people, but you would see a video of in the church, but not people. So the big one is really the children's message, and that is the one where, we zoom in mostly on the pastor. So it's not to show off the kids; it's to show the children's message to everybody. So we do zoom in more, but then all the parents can know this is exactly what is. And they can make that decision.
can always zoom it out, but I know you can just, if you're watching a video, you can just zoom in with your fingers to see closer.
See
and you can
detail.
See the kids that are
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, but we zoom the video on the pastor itself.
And if your church does multiple services too, like we only live stream the first service because after that it's recorded online. So if people did have problems being on camera, it's like, well, sorry, second service isn't streamed, so that might be an option for you.
From and I know this isn't 100% true for all churches, but from a strictly legal standpoint, any public event technically doesn't have an expectation of that sort of privacy. So under a legal standpoint, it wouldn't be a big deal. But you obviously don't want to pull that on your member and say, well, we can live stream anything we want because this is open to the public. But
No highlights later.
Yeah.
I have a general question going back to when you're setting up streams with different churches. What impact does it have, the pastor's opinion of technology and the pastor's willingness to use technology? Is it like if the pastor's in, we're in, and if he's out, we're out? How do you handle that kind of situation in a church?
That's a good question. How do you handle a situation where a pastor is either for or against it? So in all the different churches I've worked with, it's been fascinating because sometimes the pastor is the one who's like, we need to do this thing, come help us do it. Other times it's a committee. And sometimes that committee may or may not contain the people who are actually doing the work, which we'll maybe touch on a little bit later. So I do think you need to have buy-in. And when we start having these conversations, from me, I want to be talking to the people who hold the purse strings and who make the decisions. Like, I'm okay having meetings and talking to people who don't have that control, but very early on, you need to talk to the people who are going to kind of do that. And if you have opposition to do something like this, I'm going to be a little hesitant to help you jump ahead because the last thing I want to do is create a rift in the church or have you guys spend a bunch of money that doesn't get used and something that maybe doesn't get used all the way. And then, I mean, maybe if it's a weird Presbyterian church. No, so I shouldn't say that. The goal is to make sure everyone's kind of on the same page. So if you haven't had that conversation before talking to somebody, like maybe you need to have that conversation internally. Which, to bring in a consultant to have as part of that conversation to help explain things might be helpful.
I just got a question about maybe legality issues about copyright. Any copyright things
So
look at?
the copyright is a big thing. I tried to avoid it for the longest time. My understanding is if you are paying for one license or CCLI, that there is a streaming podcasting version of that you can do that covers most things. My understanding is you should be putting that copyright or that license info at the beginning of your stream. I thought that maybe it was good to put it at the end. I had one church say that they reached out to them and were like, you have to put it at the beginning. Like, it's not good enough to put it at the end. So if you are streaming, if your hymnal had, like, my understanding is if you have a hymnal, a WELS or an ELS hymnal, like, most of the copyright stuff is covered with whatever license you have to have that, but maybe double check. But basically the one license in CCLI, you'll need to be paying for that. And there is a reporting aspect of it. I have not had to deal with any of that because the secretary and the music director have dealt with all of that stuff. What we do at our church is we put that in the bulletin now, and so I just copy that, the copyright information of that our license says that we have, and I put it in a small lower third, and when we sing those songs or those hymns, I put that on the live stream during that song or during that choir piece, just so I know that it's there, and then if that piece gets clipped out separately, sometimes I'll try to put it in the description of the thing as well. Our church has been blessed to not had any issues with that, but I know some churches have run into some serious problems.
If you are using the new hymnal and are using Service Builder, Service Builder will add that into your hymnal when you print it out, the copywriting. But you still, for one license, so they connected with one license completely. One license also requires an online addendum to your, so you gotta pay a little bit extra to do the online stuff. And then what we've been doing is putting it in the description. So it's right there up front, in the description, and they can see it whatever we want. So it doesn't actually get on the video itself, it just goes into the description of the video.
Okay, that was my next question, whether it had to be on the video itself, or could it be in the description with it, or?
As far as I know, it doesn't have to be on the video because because YouTube, the way they do their algorithm is they look at the information in the description also. And that's actually how searches work also. So what you put in the description is part of the search also.
Okay.
So I think it's been working just fine for us.
Yeah.
Once in a while, you do get a little thing, so there's a copyright problem.
Yep.
It still goes through,
Yeah.
and if you're not monetized, they don't
Yeah.
really care. They just say, oh, you got a copyright issue.
Yeah. Okay.
Not everything in the hymnal is covered by one license,
Correct.
and not everything covered by one license for a reprint is also covered for live streaming. So you have to check all of that before you put it up.
Yeah, copyright is a mess, and I don't have a solution, but if anyone else does.
Well, I guess the solution is knowing that if one slips by you and it gets out there on the video, they may tell you that there's a copyright issue, but again, they don't take it down on YouTube. Facebook is a lot faster to take things off if there's a copyright issue. And if most of us will never have so many subscribers that you can monetize it, and we're not looking to monetize it. And so therefore, they don't worry too much about it. So yeah, we try to make it all work correctly. And once in a while, like a choir hymn might slip through because the choir director didn't tell us what exactly they were saying. So try to make it work. YouTube is pretty calm about it if you don't make a habit of it.
Yeah, good question. Thank you. Man, where were we? I think we're still on 2. Are we still on 2?
Yeah, technically it's
So-
on 2.
One of the other things I should mention in my more in-depth notes here is the technological things that you want to be able to do. This is kind of the stage where you just dream of all the amazing things. Like, put everything on the table, throw everything out there. You want to control the cameras from an iPad while sitting in the sanctuary? Put that on your list of desires, because this tech exists. Like, you don't have a spot for a sound booth or a tech booth, or you want to participate, or maybe the pastor wants to control things on an iPad up front. All of that's possible. JK said no over there. Do not. So there's a lot of fun technology. The auto tracking on cameras is getting really good. So you could have one camera that you just turn on and auto track somebody as long as it's tracking the correct person and doesn't get confused. Like, maybe that's a good solution. There's wireless camera systems we've installed at a couple different churches where you just have this little wireless camera. You could even put it on a little stand and move it around if you need to. And that could be just streamed straight from that device. We have little cameras like this where we've had installed stuff where people just have a little handy cam that they put on the balcony railing, and it just gets the whole church. Like, all of these things are possible. It's just kind of what you want to do and what kind of control you want to have. And this is a kind of the stage to dream about all those things, because if you can think it, there's probably a way to do it. Whether or not you decide to go with that at the end, like later you start thinking about, can you afford it? Do we have the people to run that system? But this is kind of the time to think about all the different things that you maybe would want to do.
And you can also take that into assistive technologies as well. So you have members, we know there's audio systems. So if you're hard of hearing, you could put in some sort of ear monitoring. But there's also a piece of it. There are members who are hard of sight. And so maybe you also have an iPad that your live stream can go to that iPad so that they can hold it up close. and be able to see it better. There's ways to do these other things.
Yeah, live captioning tools and stuff now too.
Yeah.
All kinds of assistive tech. I was talking a little earlier. Our church has a T-loop for hearing aids. I don't think anyone uses it, and that tech is kind of going out of fashion. So I just this week was looking into, they make systems that put out audio over Wi-Fi, and then people can connect their phones, and their phones connect to their earbuds, and they can control the volume right there on their system. So like all of these, if you can think it exists, or there's probably a way to do it. So just kind of as you start to brainstorm what you want to be able to do, like just throw out any idea, because this helps guide the different choices that we're going to make.
You bring up an interesting one with the audio assistants. We've been looking at that because ours kind of went out, just quit. So we've been looking at what we can do. Nobody was using it. So why would I buy some new stuff? So also look at, are people going to use it? You can spend a lot of money, have the best stuff out there, but if there's nobody using it, why do you have it? So if you got it, you got to sell it to the people that are going to need it, and then people that are going to need it have to know how to use it. So there's that part too. But yep, it's all out there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to move to 3, I think. It covers most of my notes on 2. If you currently have a system, or don't have a system, at some point we take stock of what you currently have. I've been in churches that are using a little amplifier that is probably older than I am to run their PA system. Some speakers maybe need to be reconed or replaced after 30, 40 years. Some of them might still be working fine. Like it kind of depends on the system. Amps will sometimes need to be replaced. Electronic parts go bad. I have had certain pieces of electronics in our church that have basically been powered on and running nonstop for 10 years. And at that point, we start to have some problems, and we're like, well, what's the problem? Well, maybe it's the box that's been on for 10 years. And you replace that box, and the problem goes away. And you're like, oh, okay. So figuring out what your current system is, and then what of that you want to keep and what of that you want to replace. Sometimes we've replaced full soundboards, like you got a little amp for your PA system. Well, we're going to replace that with a brand new soundboard that can be controlled via iPad and has sliders and is really good. Sometimes we're just going to do something that adds on to that. Maybe you have a brand new microphone system and you don't need a new one. Maybe it's time to upgrade, or the microphone that you were using is on one of the now wireless bands that you're not allowed to use or not supposed to be using because they sold off that spectrum. So those are all things to kind of look into if you're looking to upgrade, like what can you switch out and what should you switch out?
Something that Ken has done a lot is switch out wiring, like just the cables, because there's the $5 cheap version you can get, or there's the $25 and $50 version, and it impacts how well your equipment works. So it might not be your base unit, it might be the cabling between your units, and he's run into that a lot of times.
Yeah, cables are, especially things like HDMI, notoriously terrible. Even name brand cables from reputable sources might not be passing tests. I've seen stuff online where it's like they bought 100 different cables from 100 different people, and even the top of the line expensive ones weren't quite hitting spec the way they should have been hitting spec. And it's just the quality of the stuff we're producing. We're producing it as fast and cheap as we can. So one church in Mankato that I worked with, wonderful old building. We put in a system. They put up some TVs up front. They had 150, I think, foot HDMI cable. They had to drill through 3 feet of rock to push this cable from the back of the church to the front of the church, and it worked wonderfully for 2 years. And then they started having problems. And I said, well, could it be the cable? And so we ran just a cable just across the church, hooked it up to the TV, worked fine. So somehow, whether it was the heat and coolness of the church expanding, maybe there were mice in the walls, I don't know. Cable lasted 2 or 3 years, stopped working. Like, so there are things where it's like maybe like the other things to think about are what your cables are. Do they need to be replaced? And then when you're running cables, do you run a second cable just in case? Like if you're going to run a cable all the way across the church, do you have the budget to maybe run 2 of them just so you have a backup? Or maybe that's not worth it I don't know. It's always worth it. Always double whatever you're gonna do.
So as we talked about, there's lots of different ways to get video from the back of the room to the front of the room. Some of the decisions about that technology is how difficult was it to get that wire there? And you can, there's some, instead of using an HDMI cable, which you have to buy it pre-crimped and such, there are other types of ways that are going to be a little bit more flexible where you could replace ends or future you could run a different signal across that same piece of wire.
Running video signal over Cat6 is a really good viable alternative.
Yeah, and there's like 4 different ways to run video over a Cat6 from one end to the other too. Yeah.
Simply the boxes are only about $20 each.
Oh yeah, simple. And then it's a Cat6, which in the future you can run any sort of network protocol against across it too.
Is wired still the gold standard versus wireless?
If wireless stuff has come a long way and it's getting really good, if you're going to use a wireless system, I can tell you that this light is blinking and this light is blinking, but it's not connecting. I don't know why. For me, I don't trust it, but I also work in a lot of environments where I'm doing a live production and there's 1,000 people in the audience and we're live streaming something else. So for me, I don't trust it yet. It's really good. It's probably good enough for many situations. The other thing about wireless is human bodies are basically water sacs that absorb wireless signals. So you set up a wireless system in your church and it works great, and then you put 300 people in it, and then suddenly the wireless signal isn't working quite as well the way you thought it was going to be. That's because you have a lot of bodies there and they're preventing that signal from going where it needs to go. Wireless signal actually, if I understand it correctly, even though you have a router over there and a computer here, the signal isn't always going like this. Sometimes the signal is going off that wall and then off that wall and then there. So it isn't always line of sight when you think it should be. So there's, just the way your church is built could have impact on wireless or where your access points are.
Rule of thumb on wireless is it works as well as a cell phone.
Yep, it's good. So on this stage 3, as you're thinking about the system you currently have, if you're going to either upgrade or put in new or something else, this is when I would say start thinking about the frustrations you have, the friction that you currently have. You're like, man, I wish this worked differently, or man, it's annoying to have to always do this thing. This is the time to kind of bring those ideas to light, because these are things we can maybe fix when you're switching things out. So that's another thing. And then also, if you have blueprints for your church, if you have measurements, this is also the point where I would be like, okay, well, what is the physical space like? Do you have to drill through 3 feet of rock to get your cable from one side to the other? Are you okay doing a surface mount underneath the windows or underneath the radiator? If you're running the cable up along the rafters, does it have to be brown so people don't see it? A lot of these sort of things too would come up at this point.
And you might actually be surprised that somebody actually thought ahead of time and ran conduit exactly where you want it to go, that nobody has touched because they never looked at it. But we were actually fortunate to find that in a couple cases.
And if you are ever involved in building a new church, put in conduit. Put in whatever you think you need for conduit, double it. Any other questions or comments? Awesome. You guys are doing great. Everyone doing okay still? We got plenty of.
I have a question.
Please.
Is there a good inventory software, to record, it all has this technical information about, because nothing comes with paper instruction manuals anymore. So is that part of your inventory? This is the model of the camera, this is where it's located, this is how you access it, this is what it does. Is that all part of it, or is it just simply a list of, this is what we have, go find it somewhere in the church?
Could be either or.
Okay.
I think if you could have a detailed list like that, it would be amazing. I think most churches do not have anything even close. So sound comes through the speakers. Cool.
Yeah.
So.
What speakers are they?
Yeah.
Where they purchased?
Yeah, where's the amp that's powering them? Where's the receiver for the microphone? All like, yeah. Mhm.
Is there a software,
I don't know of any.
anything like that?
Not. I don't know of anything. I know people would put it together in Excel or Word or something, and that would probably be fine. Did you have?
Well, my question is, so how often should you be thinking about replacing things? I mean, because we were talking how look, cameras change so quickly nowadays. Is there like set? Are you just waiting till, oh, hey, that's actually gonna fall apart, that's not working that great? Or should we be looking at, hey, maybe 4 years down the line, you bought this, you might wanna be thinking about, you might need to replace it?
This, again, I would say is individual to your church and your desire for risk management. I recently, I didn't hear if they accepted my proposal or not, but I recently asked my church, I said, hey, can we put in a line item in our budget every year of $2,000 to replace some equipment? Because basically anything that breaks will cost about $2,000, hopefully less. But every year I want the option to replace something if it breaks without having to do some special thing. If we don't spend that money, great, then maybe we would have the option to buy something new if we wanted, but at least put something in there. I don't know if they decided to do that or not. I'm somebody who will run technology until it stops working, mostly because our budget we don't have a ton to kind of work with. But like, I don't know if we have a converter box, like I said, 10 years, and then it started being on the fritz. Like, if I can get something in the last 10 years, that would be great. My church is a little weird. We don't turn stuff off. And part of that is because I go to first service and then there's a second service, and so the soundboard doesn't get turned off, the sound system doesn't get turned off, the computer doesn't get turned off. And I'm sure I could teach somebody to do this, but it would take a little bit of a culture shift. And so right now we're just operating on these things will run until they stop running. But yes, if you wanted to, you could replace things. The technology they're trying to put out new cameras way too often. But they have to appease their shareholders, and they have to keep making money so they can keep, operating. So it's kind of up to you, I guess. But if you can get a couple years out of it, I'd say you're doing good.
Yeah, the other way to look at it is revisiting your why. So if you're looking at, I mean, ideally, once a year. I mean, but even every 2-3 years, going back to revisiting, why are we doing this? Who are we doing this for? And that will often drive the answer to that question. Is like, okay, the people we're reaching out to, we need a higher quality video camera for this, or our school is starting to be coming in and singing in this area, so we need to be able to set up to be able to manage that type of thing. So just revisiting your why occasionally to make sure that the system as it is laid out is meeting the needs of the congregation.
If you're looking into budgeting from the church side of things, something that I highly recommend is making that list of at least all the bigger pieces of equipment, and then going through and looking up what the estimated lifespan is. Maybe you don't have the date of when it was purchased, but you can typically by the model number find out. And then I'm sure there's plenty of asset management softwares out there, but from a church side, it's usually not super practical because they usually cost more money. Making some sort of spreadsheet with it and saying, well, this typically lasts 5 to 10 years. Here's how much it costs new. Here's how much we can consider putting away for when it needs to, when it'll eventually break down. Because you can typically, and I've seen things last 10, 20 years longer than they should have. And also things break down 5 years sooner than the expected lifespan. But at least putting a spreadsheet like that together can give you an idea of where you need to be in the future, or how much you can expect to spend when some of that stuff breaks. So it's not hey, our live stream switcher went out, we need to spend $2,000 to replace this. Or in the meantime, you can look up and say, do we need to spend $2,000 on this huge elaborate mixer? Could we get away with something that's $200 or $500? So having that timeline is really beneficial, so you don't all of a sudden have something break and need to order something to have it there by the next Sunday.
Yeah. The church I was at this last week literally wrote the year they purchased the camera on the camera itself. So there's a little Sharpie 2024 on the camera, which I thought was a smart idea, because then I could imagine a scenario where you have a list of all the gear that you have, and then it sits on a hard drive and people forget that it exists, and then you might as well not have it. So good conversation, great questions. I'm loving this so far. I'm going to jump to 4, I think, which is our system will be operated by, and this is every single system is teachable. Every system is teachable. The way my brain works might be a little different than someone else's brain, but I'm sure we can figure out a way to translate that. There are people whose gifts are in writing down instructions in a way that makes sense. When you build a system, sometimes you're the wrong person to say how it works, because some things are just, well, of course I would do that. But if you don't know the system, you would forget you wouldn't know you have to hit that button or press that key. So figuring out kind of who's going to run the system is important, and then how that's going to work. This is a point where you maybe start to consider the people, the strengths and the aptitudes of the people in your church. I have been part of groups where they're like, hey, we want to do the live streaming. And so there's like 5 people around the table talking about what they want to do in the church. And we're like, great, who's going to run the system? And they're like, I don't know. Like, well, that changes things. Like, if you're going to have somebody who's afraid of technology run the system, like, then I'm going to make it super simple. If you have somebody who loves to tinker and isn't afraid of breaking things, I'm going to do a system that's different than that. And again, every system is teachable, and it's just a matter of making sure that you put the right instructions in place and you have people who are willing to kind of learn the system. So considering some of that, and then this, start to think about the complexity of the system as well. You can make things that are immensely complex, and there is part of me which loves those. When you get complex systems, you have options. Like, oh, if we put in this board, then we could send stuff over here, and we could send a different signal to the cry room, and the people at home get something different, and we put graphics on the live stream, but it doesn't go up to the thing in front of the church, and like, it gets super exciting. But you need to have somebody who's willing to think through all of those things and run that system. So don't forget that part. My suggestion is have the people who are going to run the system be a part of the meetings. Let them have some buy-in. Don't just assume, oh, Bob will run this, and then you find out, oh, you upgraded the system and Bob doesn't like the new system, and Bob doesn't want to help anymore. It's like, okay, well, it's always a little strange to me when you're having a meeting and the people who are going to run the system don't even know that this meeting is taking place. So I have been in that situation, and it all ends up working. It's church politics sometimes is interesting. It's like these people run the PowerPoint and they want their desk here, and it's going to be like this, and then you add the live streaming system and they don't want anything to do with it, and they don't like the way that things are set up. It's like, okay, so we have to kind of work through some of these things, bring in a counselor, whatever that takes. Do you have any comments on this part at all?
It's always it is a challenge, but it is that important thing to keep them in mind, and be prepared to be wrong. There was some ideas. Oh, we'll have the teens will do it. We'll bring them in, and I think we have 1 or 2 teenagers out of our group of 10 or 15 that help out. Everybody else is over 60. So you might be wrong, but then you might have to reevaluate again what you're going to do. So just be prepared to be wrong.
I like that. That's good. I don't know if this is true about the FoMaKo cameras, but I know some of these cameras can be controlled with an Xbox controller. I don't know if you have to plug it into the computer or you can just plug it straight into the back of the camera, but you can use a video game controller to control where the camera's looking. So there are some other innovative style solutions where we want to get the younger people involved, like.
Hard to do that. Downside, it's kind of clunky. So you're better off getting a real controller if you're gonna have multiple cameras. If you're only gonna have one camera, you know, you probably don't need it. And they'll show you some of the things, ways that you can get around that. But yes, you can use an Xbox controller.
The more your operators understand the system, the more likely they will be able to troubleshoot a problem. So part of the complexity and part of the having the who's going to run this, if you have somebody who has the buy-in or who's able to help with the install or who gets excited about digging into tech, like they're the people you want, because when something goes wrong, they can kind of figure it out. For any of the churches I work with, like they're welcome to call me on Sunday morning if something's not working, but I am also probably live streaming my own service, so trying to help out people while you're also doing stuff. I think I've done it before. It's tricky. So yeah, thinking about your people and is also important. Jumping on to number 5 here. Number 5 is very similar to the statement number 2, because you're talking about your ideal system. But now, in my mind, you start putting 3 and 4 together. So this is when you start to kind of develop your plan. And so the main thing is, what are your must-haves? What are your non-negotiables? Like, must you have 2 cameras or 3 cameras? Or do you need a audio mixer that can be controlled with an iPad? Like, what are the things that you, if you're not going to do this, don't bother kind of thing? So thinking through some of those and we made all of those wish list items at the beginning. We put all those down. Now you start circling the ones that these are important and these are the ones the system needs to have. And then part of that too is, what is the best fit? Like, do any of these, like, man, we would really love to be able to do this, but now that we're thinking about the space that we have and the people who are going to run it, maybe that's not for us. That's the kind of where, as 5, we start to narrow down everything and make decisions. And again, there's no wrong answers, but this is where you also start to see some of the trade-offs. It's like, well, we can do this. We can do it this way. But then if you also do this, here's an issue. So one of the big things, to give a more concrete example, you kind of have your software solutions and your hardware solutions. And when you do a software solution, you're basically sending video into a computer, and the computer is spitting the video back out. And there's a little bit of processing time that takes place there. Sometimes it's only a little bit, sometimes it's a little bit longer. But when you're going through a software system, in my experience, there's a little bit of delay. So if you're taking a software stream and you're putting it in the narthex, and someone can hear what's happening in the church and they're hearing your stream on the TV, and there's a half second or even a quarter second delay, they'll notice that. That might be a problem. If you're sending it to a part of the campus that can't hear the church and it's okay to have a little bit of a delay, maybe that's not a problem. But that's one of those trade-offs where if you go with a software solution, you might have a situation where it's like, well, you can do this, you can send it to this space, but it won't be exactly real time. Whereas a hardware solution is probably only going to have a delay of like 1 frame or half a frame or something like that. And so there's other types of trade-offs, but those are the types of trade-offs that you start to run into at this point, where as you decide what your must-haves are, like, well, this solution's going to better suit that versus this other solution.
Yeah, I was just trying to think through some of the situations that we've run into. Like the trade-offs are real, but you go back to that initial list of, you've seen all of these different ways people have done live streaming, and you start to pull together, you get that wish list, but you start to see the biggest constraint that I know I had run into is users, and me being one of them. The users is just knowing how to pull it off. And, I would love to be able to do that scenario where we have one person running everything, including what we have on the screens in the church, what's going to the mother's room, what's going out on the live stream, and how all of that comes together and making all of them look a little bit different and optimized. You can do that, but who's going to put that together every single Sunday? So we can't do that. It's going to be too complex and too costly to pull that off the way that I would like to see it. So that's not going to be on the table. And hardware-wise, at the time at where you're at today, you may not have the internet to be able to sustain doing it live. So maybe you have to instead record it and upload it, and there's going to be a hour delay in how it shows up. But just depends on physically where you're located and the space. How you might want cameras to be in certain places. You just can't physically run wires there. But if you move it, you might have a real nice, easy solution. So those, some of the things you'll have to think through.
Any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, donations? Okay. At this point, after I've talked about all of these things with you, I'm finally ready to talk about your budget. Now that we have an ideal outcome for you, I can actually give you concrete numbers. If you come to me and just like, we want a live stream, we want like 3 cameras, we want to be able to put it on YouTube, and we need a new soundboard. I'm like, great. I could spend $5K or I could spend $25,000. Like there's no limit. But now that you've told me exactly what you want to do, I can give you. There still might be 1 or 2 options. There might be an expensive option and a cheaper option, or for some of these things, or there could be a simple option and a complex option. But I can give you actual, concrete, real numbers and actual products for what you might be looking for. And at this stage, my friend and I, when we work with churches, we'll actually pull up B&H Photo, which is a website that sells equipment. Maybe you're familiar with it. And we'll put together a cart. And then you have an actual cart that you can email out to people. You can see the number on it. If you actually order from B&H, they do have a good system for tax exempt. You can contact them and put in your get a tax exempt account with them. We do a lot of ordering through them. So I can give you actual numbers. And the other thing this allows you to do is kind of see where you're at. If you're thinking that maybe you're going to spend $5,000, and then after thinking about it, you're like, well, this is actually a $15,000 project. Now you have a chance to fundraise. Now you have a chance to get your congregation excited about it. We're also assuming somewhere in here, you've hopefully talked about who's going to be using the system. If you're going to spend $20,000, maybe make sure that you don't have 2 people watching every week. Maybe maybe you want to scale back. That was maybe part of this.
Have you heard of the Antioch Foundation?
Antioch Foundation is they're by the Schwann people, I believe, Quick Trip. Sorry, I'm getting my foundations confused.
We just applied for a grant for them for some audio stuff, so I don't know if we'll get it, but I know they give them for some of that stuff. So that's a good thought. Is there are organizations that will do grants, and some of them love to do one-time thing. Like most of them love to do one-time things, especially for something new. They don't love doing long-term projects. They like to do short, fun things. So looking for those. That's a good point. If you need budget fundraising, that's one option. Some of these systems could be put together piece by piece. It's very easy to put up 1 camera with a hardware controller. Once you have that, most hardware controllers and most streaming systems allow 3, 4, sometimes even 5 or 6 cameras to be hooked up to them. Some of them even have 8 inputs on them. Not that your church doesn't need more than like 3 or 4 cameras, but if you wanted to have 8, like maybe if you wanted to have some in your fellowship hall so you could stream down here and also upstairs, but have 1 box to do it all, like you could also do that. So it is possible where you're like, okay, we have an initial budget and we're looking to do this eventually. So can we start? Because as soon as you start buying stuff, if you're able to kind of install some of it, people start to get excited. And once they can kind of see what you're going to do, it gets a little bit easier to like, oh, I'll give to that. Like there's something concrete. If you're just giving to something like, I don't know, just some streaming something, or we need more tech, I guess. Like it makes it a little bit easier when you have concrete numbers and concrete items to start fundraising for as well. In general, like everyone wants to know, like what is a number? Where do we start?
in general, I'm gonna say if you want a what I would consider decent or middle quality, you want a good starting point, plan to spend a few $1,000s. You can get like these cameras fairly cheap. I'm somebody who likes to kind of separate things out. I want a camera controller to control my cameras. I want a switcher to switch the video. I'm going to have a computer that streams it out, and then I might have some other system in here as well. For me, that's safety, because if one of those systems goes down, I haven't lost everything. I just have to replace one thing. Some of these systems will do it all. And that's amazing because you can do the camera control and the switching and the streaming all in one box. That's one purchase and you're good to go. It's easy to hook up. You're going to get to see some of this later. That's perfect because if something goes out, you just replace the one box, right? It's wonderful. So kind of figuring out, I don't remember where I was going with this. So you're going to be spending a couple $1,000s probably. If you're like, we have to start streaming, we have to start tomorrow, and we can only use what we have on hand, you can buy a little cell phone stand for $35 on Amazon. You can plug your cell phone into it and just use that stuff. Cell phone footage and the cell phone microphones are actually really good. The ELS has one church in Australia. They've been without a pastor for a long time, and they just got a pastor. And they have been live streaming their services with a cell phone at the front of the church for years. And it works. Like I'll tune in on, for us it's Saturday nights, but I'll occasionally tune in to just kind of see how things are going. And I know the pastor down there, and it's a ton of fun. But you can start super cheap if you just want to start seeing who's going to tune in, who's going to do stuff. Is it actually going to make a difference? But there's no high end, there's no top high end to stuff. So these cameras are $400-ish, give or take. They have some higher models. There's another brand of cameras. I don't know that they're any better than these, but they cost 3 times the price. And then if you want to go with a high-end Sony or Canon camera, they make very nice PTZ cameras. It is $5,000 per camera. If you want the best possible PTZ, PTZ is point, tilt, and zoom camera if you're not familiar. But if you want the highest end PTZ camera, you're probably spending $10,000 on a camera. Your church does not need that. If your church wants to spend that, sure, go for it. But your church does not need that. Switchers are typically going to cost a couple thousand if you're buying it separately. I don't remember what these ones. About $700 for one of these. So these are a wonderfully affordable option. Soundboards, if you're getting a brand new soundboard, sometimes if you're getting one that's digital, and I have recently been converted, digital is kind of the way to go here. It gives you a lot of really good options. I'm a big fan of Allen and Heath mixers. They just came out with a new one that's almost perfect for churches, and it's $2,000. But of course, you can buy, if you need more inputs or you need more options, like you just keep adding and adding and adding. And then, of course, you got to factor in things like install. Are you paying someone to install it? Do you have volunteers or just people who are going to help install it? Cabling is sometimes an issue. There's just a lot of incidentals. I've had some churches where they're like, we're just going to have somebody build a desk to put it on. It's like, great. If you aren't going to have someone just build a desk to put it on, you might have to buy a desk. And, it doesn't have to be fancy. It could be something off of Facebook Marketplace. But there's just a lot of little, we also need a surge protector. We really need this one cable that goes from here to here. So there's just a lot of little pieces. So plan to spend at least a couple $100 on incidentals. Where it's just like, we needed one more XLR cable and that's $5 or something like that. So you can get by really, really cheaply. If you have a couple $1,000s, I'd say you're in a good starting point. A bunch of churches I've worked with have spent in the 5 to 15 range. I've worked with one or two that went all in and they were at maybe $20,000. But they were also putting giant TVs in the front and putting multiple TVs in other rooms, and they had they just had a whole system of just crazy stuff of putting graphics on screen and things like that.
Yeah, so ultimately, once you get this cost, the real value of kind of following through and thinking about it steps wise is that as you're fundraising, as you're doing all of these things, once you know the cost, you also know the why. So selling that story to be able to tell, like, this is what we're going to get for this money. Because otherwise, if you do start the other way, okay, I got $4,000 to, and we're going to get a live stream. What does that mean? I don't know. It could mean anything. But you start with the why, start with a really understanding the foundation of what you want out of this, that story to be able to explain to everybody what this is going to do. It's got the ability to draw some excitement and to draw some interest in being part of that outcome and being part of building that system, and makes that part a lot easier.
What questions do you have? What did we not answer? What things did we not talk about that the description of this talk said we were going to talk about and you were looking forward to, and we haven't touched on it yet?
I'm going to take you back a little bit to something earlier you're talking about was listening to your own feed. Listening to your own what you're putting out there, going and watching your videos. I mentioned that I take the weekly recording, and I usually take the recording off of the switcher. So the switcher that we have, this one, all of them that we have in this building, they all record directly to an SSD card. I take that off, I copy that into my computer, I take it home, and I edit it down to 30 minutes. Which is usually taking out all the hymns and unfortunately the singing, but go to 30 minutes, then we put that on the radio the next week. That's allowed me to do exactly what you're talking about. All of a sudden, I'm sitting there listening to it, and nobody told me that the audio was bad that week. And then all of a sudden going, ooh, the audio is pretty bad. And I come back to whoever was running the booth that day and go, did you have some audio issues? Oh yeah, we had a little problem. Or the last couple of weeks we've had audio crackling through our speakers in there. And the first time it happened, I had kids in my arm. I have the grandkids here, so they're making noise, so I didn't hear that. And I have problems hearing anyway. So audio is my Achilles heel to begin with. And they go, yeah, there's this crackling going on, but I didn't hear it. Well, as soon as I put the headphones on and started listening to the live stream, it's like, woo, okay, now I understand where that's coming from and what is that. So, yeah, listen to it. So that you can especially do that. If you have people that do listen to it every day, every week, that you know that they're going to be listening to it every week, get them to make contact with you. So we have a gentleman who does listen to it most of the time. He does get to church once in a while, but one of his relatives is talking to me every single week about technology because he's got a part of it. He does the Facebook group and other things. And he'll send me a text. Yeah, I'm told that the sound was bad. Or we couldn't hear the speaker, or we couldn't hear pastor, or pastor kept cutting out. That kind of input made me move the speaker's receiver up to the front, running an actual cable back to my box because something was blocking every single time. Something would cut out. Who knows what it was. But as soon as I moved it up behind the altar, everything worked great. I haven't had a problem with him cutting out at all. So those are the kind of things you get from people listening to the live stream. If you get to know who they are, those are ways that you can get people to hear. My wife, when she's traveling to see the grandkids, she'll watch the live stream. Right in the middle of it, I'll get a text. Something cut out. I was like, okay, I can't do anything about it. But that's when she saw it. So I'm sitting there in church here. She's traveling someplace, and I hear about it.
But then I've also been at home a couple times watching live stream, and I know you're the one behind the booth.
Yep.
And I text, turn on mic 1, turn on mic 1.
So yeah, have kind of a group of people that around you that can help you out with that. And the more people that are willing to share, and they know you're not going to just write them off, the more they're willing to help you out.
Yeah, one of the things I think we'll talk about in the different breakout discussions is what is going out online is fundamentally different than what is happening in the sanctuary. And especially when we talk about audio, when we talk about audio upstairs, the audio you're sending to the internet is and should be different than the audio you're sending to the sanctuary. So if you're just in the sanctuary, we have a microphone, or at least we did at my church, where when I was listening to the live stream, I could hear a little bit of like extra garbliness where it would kind of do a weird something. I don't know how to describe it. Could not hear it in the sanctuary, but I could hear it in the live stream. So just paying attention to some of those things as well.
Why I'm pushing out to YouTube as loud as I can without distortion. Why do we still have to turn it all the way up when we're listening to the live stream on YouTube or playing it back later? I can't go any higher than I'm pushing it right now.
That's a good question. How is what are you using to stream?
XSplit.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that one.
I mean, I can have even inside my streaming software, I'm also making sure I'm cutting off any clipping because I am pushing it hard, just to push out as much as I can.
So YouTube has a nominal audio level that they like the audio to come in at, and so I'm guessing and believe when I looked at XSplit, similar to OBS, and I think in OBS you probably can show a little bit more easily that live stream, there is a level that to get it to go out at like -5 dB or but there is a nominal level you want it to go in at, and that should be completely separate from what's in the sanctuary.
Yeah,
so
it is. Yeah.
But there's also like some, you start to think about like dynamic range of like how quiet of a sound do you want to be going out and how loud of a sound, and maybe bringing that down, narrowing that a little bit. But there are some ways to think about audio, and that's like a whole nother piece of it. But there's probably some simple things that will bring that back up for what YouTube expects for an input of nominal is what it should be, regardless of whether you have the slider slid all the way up or halfway down. It's just more about what that nominal looks like.
One kind of comment on that, a lot of different hardware switchers will, or even software will somewhere in there have the option of if you want a line in or a mic in, because some of these you can plug directly a microphone versus a line off of a soundboard. So I've ran into churches that have an issue with that, where they're seemingly sending as much audio as they can off the board, and then the hardware encoder just flips up and down because it thinks it's a microphone plugged directly into it, so it's trying to balance the signal that way versus a clean, fresh line coming in off a board. So look for that somewhere too.
Thank you. That's a good thought. I would love to help you out more. If you want to connect, if you want, I can do some over the phone or video call troubleshooting if that would be helpful. Which I should say, not to promote myself too much, I brought some business cards. If you want to connect with me later, I love helping out churches with just consulting stuff, and typically I will just like take a phone call with you or a Zoom call and just talk you through stuff and whatever. I don't charge for any of that. If you want me to actually come in and do the install, then I'll usually have a day rate, which is, everyone tells me I need to raise it. So, but I don't need to, so I don't. So just so you're aware of that. If you want to connect later, and I don't know if everyone else here, I'm assuming it feels the same way, get their numbers, get their contact info, because any of us would probably love to just jump on a call with you and help you as troubles come up or you have questions. But anything else here? We are actually just a few minutes ahead of schedule, so we're right on. If there's nothing else, I think we can, I'll hand it back over to Ken.
Yeah, thanks. That's pretty much what I was hoping we'd get from this. Lots of questions, lots of answers. Hopefully they're good answers for you, or they at least make you think about what you actually need to do. But that was really excellent. And And as far as the line in versus mic in, I tell you what, that was the one thing that was holding me back for such a long time. I couldn't figure out why my audio was so bad. And then somewhere along the line, somebody mentioned line in versus mic, and I said, okay, I got to figure out what that is. So I looked on YouTube again. I said, line versus mic inputs. And somebody explained it to me going, basically it's about 10 times higher for a line input than a mic input. So if you got a line in going into a mic, it's going to blow it out. If you got a mic going into a line, you're not going to have anything. And once I figured out the difference, and just about every switcher I've ever used allows you on the mics to change one to the other. So on the switchers that allow you, like the M4 back there that we're recording on right now, that is a capability. So you can change that line in versus mic in. And if you have phantom power going to it, it's pretty much going to be mic in, or excuse me, line in, because there's power going to it. But that's not necessarily always the case. So ask them when you get upstairs. They'll show you some more stuff about the different mics and stuff. But just keep asking questions. Hopefully we got answers for you. We're going to take about 10 more minutes or so. 11, about 5 minutes to. We'll come back here. So please take a break, and we'll get restarted here in a little bit, and we'll talk more about the technology.
Yeah, and
All right. So I love all the questions. I mean, that is super great that you had all those questions and they were able to handle that. I'm going to give you some more things to think about from the technology side. So remember what we're here for. We're here again for the ministries. We're going to talk a lot of technology now, so we're going to get off the subject of why we're here to what we're going to use to actually reach that. And somewhere I put my clicker down. I think it's back there. I could use the laptop, but I got the technology, so I got to use it. All right. So again, here's your presenters. I'm going to talk a little bit here, and I'll be floating around. Phil is going to be upstairs talking about audio this afternoon, so he's kind of got that line, although Donovan knows an awful lot about audio too, and so does everybody else. Donovan's going to be doing the hardware stuff in the back, and we'll get to that. Derek will be doing the software stuff in the back corner over here, and then John will be floating around and just answering questions wherever he feels like being at the time. So the big picture. Oh, I got to turn myself on, don't I?
No, you're good.
Oh, I'm good.
Do you want us to give a little background of like what our experiences are, so that when that comes?
Let's do that right after lunch. Perfect. Let's do that right after lunch, because I'm going to probably use up this half hour really fast because there's a lot to talk about here. So the big picture, what happens? You need to capture. You're gonna capture video from something because we're doing live streaming. So you got to have some way to capture video, and this is all printed on the handout. Which one is it? I just put my handouts down. There you go. So it says Church Live Streaming Workshop, and it's got pretty much all I did was take the slides and turn it into bullets. So you have everything that I have up here. So it gives you a chance to just write the extra notes that you're not going to see here. So we're going to capture video. Once we capture video, we got to add sound to it. And the sound, as you've already heard, is really a big part of it. Then we need some kind of a production system to combine those two. And the great thing about it is there are hardware pieces that will do that all for you, or there's software that will do that all for you. So you can go whichever way you want to go, whichever way you got money. Do you not have one? I got one right back there on my list there. There you go. Thank you. So you can do it one way or the other, but there are ways that will do that for you. So that's really great. In the old days, actually about 6 years ago, they started coming out with the small little switchers. And I've got one of everything that came out at that time. There's one sitting right here that all it does is switch video. And so for this it's a kind of a dumb system. It works really great. It just allows me to switch between TV there and my laptop here and whatever else we want to plug in there. Then we need an encoder. That encoder sends it from your church or from wherever you're going from out to wherever you're going to put it out there for people to see it. So we use YouTube. The reason we use YouTube is it's simple. As simple as they can get, really. There are other ones out there, maybe more simple, but you can also pay some of the ones, and the ones that you pay for probably do a little bit simpler, and I don't know many of those, but there's plenty of places to go with your signal. So we're just going to talk about YouTube, just simply it's out there and it's free and it's easy for everybody to get to. So you got to send an encoder to get there, and that sends a stream. Once they have it, that platform then is available to deliver that to whoever's watching. You have to have all 5 of these basically to do a live stream. But what does that look like? All right, so we got the 5 building blocks. We got video, we got audio, we got control of some sort, we got the encoding, we got the distribution, and it looks like this. So this is ours from upstairs. So at the top you have video inputs, and we have typically 3 inputs regularly. Sometimes we'll add a 4th one in there. And I've recently added an NDI capability, which they'll talk about you can ask that question in the different workshops. OBS does a good job of bringing NDI into a computer. So you got the video. Over here on the side here, I have our audio inputs. And our Mackie soundboard that we use gets audio inputs from handheld mics, from pastor's mic, from the organ, and we also bring in sound from another laptop. So we have a laptop that we do our PowerPoint with so that goes out to the stream, but we don't have any audio at that moment. But at the beginning of every service, we do the bells. Well, they ended up being recorded. We got the big bell out front, and years ago, they'd have a little push button here in the church, and we could just barely hear the bell ringing outside. That hasn't worked in years. But our organist was able to recreate bells on the organ, but we no longer have that organ. Actually, that's sitting right over there. So before we switched it out to the keyboard that we have now, I asked her to record it, and I recorded it on the board, and I created a video of it. And so every day, the first thing we do is we unmute the computer, and we ring the bells, and it sounds really nice. So we can also bring in other audio for that purpose, but so we have a laptop connected to that soundboard also. That's one of the inputs for the switcher. The other input for the switcher is all the stuff that we don't want coming through the speakers in the church. So Phil was talking about the difference between what's the sound, the audio that's being put out in the church versus what's going to be going out live stream. And so we had to bring in a second mic, which you have two microphones on inputs on most all these. And all that has is a couple of microphones hidden on the walls in the sanctuary. So as typical technology guys, they see a cable, they got to look around, and he found it almost immediately. 90% of the church still doesn't know I have these microphones sitting on the wall. Well, maybe 80% now. They've been there for a while. But they're there, and they're just kind of hidden because it's a white cord. And what I used was, if you've ever seen the ones that hang from the ceiling, and it's just it's barely a really thin wire, and it comes down, and it has a little bit of a kick out to sound for your choirs. That's all I used. I just kind of stuck it on the side, kicked it out so that it sticks out a little bit, and I can pick up from this side of the sanctuary our choir singing on the other side, and it picks it up well enough for everybody to hear it online. But those microphones do not go through anything in the church. They only go through the live stream, so that people that are out there can hear what's going on. And now they're picking up my grandkids. Because talking, I got a 2-year-old that likes to talk, and he has only one volume. But that's the audio. Then you have the control. Now for me, the control is in the switcher. That's where it all goes. And I did that after trying the software version and realizing my volunteers aren't going to get this software stuff. I was barely keeping up with it, and it kept crashing my computer. So I said, okay, we got to do something different. So I worked every other weekend, was the job that I had, so I also knew that I wasn't going to be here to do this every week, so somehow we had to figure something out. So I started testing different ways of doing hardware switching, and that's the way we ended up going upstairs. It does a presentation that comes down here to the basement. So one of the talks is our live stream actually comes out of there in what's called the program. So in a program view on a switcher, that's what's going to be recorded, and that's typically what's going to go out to the live stream. There's ways to change that, but that's what you normally see. That comes out. That comes down here to the basement. Now the way I did that was cheating a little bit, because as we added on to this building, we ended up throwing a whole bunch of cables into the ceiling above us, and I spread network all through this place, which we didn't have before. We also put a more of a facade on the concrete walls, and so I kind of hid some down there, and we can connect them wherever we're at. What I did up there was we ended up thinking that we were going to do some projection, so we put a couple of places on the sides up high, or at least up high as we could go, where we allowed us to run a couple of cables. Talk about pre-doing cables with any construction you do. Put some out there. Well, turns out that was a good idea. We don't use it the way we thought we were going to use it though. What I did was I come from the switcher, I bring a line going back up through there. That comes through the walls now, goes over to our our network switch sitting in that door right over there. But everything comes into a patch panel. If you know what a patch panel is, all it is all the cables come in, and now you can go from the patch panel with a little short piece of cable and go to the switch, and it's hot. It's working. Well, guess what? You can go from one to another, and that's all I did, and it comes out here, connects to this TV, and it comes here live. And I'm doing that with a HDMI to Ethernet extender. So it's just extending through a network cable, Cat 5e or 6, now 7 works, and that's all it's doing. It's just sending a signal down here, signal for video and audio. So it basically replaced an amplifier that we had up there that came into the speakers that we put down here that we no longer use, because it comes through so clearly on here. Now there is a short delay, which there typically will be. But because it's down here, nobody cares. It works perfectly. So it's maybe about a 10, 15, well, maybe not even 10-second delay. It's pretty short. But you definitely notice it when you're kind of halfway up and down the stairs. We have a multi-view monitor. So that's really easy to go. So hit your button there. Yeah, hit the side there maybe to turn it back on. Technology, see how easy this works? Anyways, it goes to the multi-view monitor, which allows you to see all the different cameras. That's what I had showing up when you came in here. So we had the multi-view monitor up here. Allows you to see all the different views, all the different cameras, to be able to see that. We also do a recording. Now the recording is done right on there also. And that recording is what I said, the one that I usually get. And that is 1080p recording. Now most of these videos or most of these switchers at the level that I've been working at are only going to put out 1080p. That is full HD, FHD if you've seen that. Typically what all the good TVs came up with until they started saying, oh, we can go 4K and oh, we can go 8K and we can, okay, nobody's doing that. If you stream 4K to YouTube, you're overselling it. You do not need to do that. Stay with the 1080p. It's a good stream. It's good, clear video. Stay with that. That's what they're putting out anyways. Some of them will take 4K in, which is what these cameras are doing, is they can do up to 4K, but do you really need that? Well, it actually works pretty good going into the switcher. Let the switcher change it down to the 1080p and send it out. It does it all for you. But the recording will come through and you can record it. Typically go with a good high-speed SSD. The Samsung T7s work really, really well. I got a couple other ones. I made my own, so the one we're using back there is just an NVMe card, so for something out of a laptop. And I put it into an external case and I made my own. So use an SSD. You'll be happy because when you try to load it up to something else, it goes quick. A lot of them will use SD cards also. So the M4 there uses an SD card. The one in the back corner uses an SD card. And so they will do that. And then you have the encoding we'll do that straight out of the switcher. And then we use a second laptop simply as a monitor for the live stream. And that's what he's doing back there too. He's got it up on his laptop so he can monitor that, yep, the live stream is going. I can once in a while, even if I want to, I can turn it up so I can hear it. But you got to be careful of that, because if you're watching the live stream too much, that's usually a 10-second, 15-second delay, and it will screw you up. Go, oh no, I'm in the wrong slide. And you start switching and going, oops, that's too fast. Now I got to go back. Not that I've ever done that. What they will normally see is if there's an error, it's on my watch. So, did you do that? Let me see if I can get that back. There we go. All right. This is all you need. All that extra stuff out there works for us. But the bottom line is you need a video input. You have a camera. We're going to give you a camera to take home, and that's a good camera. We can talk more about that here in a moment. Some kind of soundboard. So if you already have a soundboard in your church, all you need to do is figure out how to get that sound over to the whatever it is that's going to send this off to the computer or to the YouTube. some sort of switcher, some sort of mechanical thing, maybe OBS in a computer, whatever it is that you're doing, that's what that switcher is. It can be any of that. Whatever minimum, some way to record it if you want to record it. That's my backup. We've had Sundays where for some reason we don't have internet. We always have a backup. And so I always hear that, oh, we couldn't see the stream. Oh, yep, it went bad. But then we upload it immediately after that. So as soon as it's ready to go, we upload it, and it's done. Then that's going to encode it for you, and then a laptop just to monitor what's going on. You can also, if you want to monitor it, just bring up your phone, tap into that YouTube channel, and you can monitor it yourself. So you don't need to necessarily use YouTube to do that.
And if you have a camera or a cell phone that also does audio, do you still have to have the soundboard component, or can you go straight to the switcher with the audio from the camera?
That's a good question. So let me talk about this camera a little bit. I'm gonna cover that by doing this. So this is the camera that we're giving you here. This is the FMK 20UH. That FMK, I guess FoMaKo is FMK, but that camera back there was the first FoMaKo camera I ever had. And that kind of what I did a review on that, and they found my review and they said, hey, we'd like to send you some more. And I started doing, that's how I ended up doing reviews for FoMaKo, and I really like their stuff. This one is way better than that one. And that's a year and a half old, but that one is still up for sale, and now it has NDI HX3, which is the newest one. It's got the 3rd gen auto tracking, and that was my problem with that one. The auto tracking wasn't very good. It was a little bit glitchy. And I had a long talk with them about it, and they listened to me, and I think that helped the newer generations. They're really a lot better. When I opened this up and I started doing that, using it, it really made it go easier. So yeah, I can't get away from this now. And how I would use this, I got 2 that would be stationary using presets, and we're going to go to wherever we're at. And then something like this, my 3rd one in the back, I might just put the 3rd one and have that focusing on pastor, and just have him following him around up there by the altar, and he can do wherever he wants. It's going to follow him. He's going to step inside to get a drink of water once in a while, the side over there, and it'll wait for him to come out and pick him back up. But the benefit of that is, if for some reason he goes to someplace else that I don't have a preset for, or I have a different pastor decides to go stand out in the middle instead of stand behind the lectern, it would be really nice to be able to just automatically switch to that camera, and that's going to do that for me. So I just switch to that camera, or if you have a guest pastor who likes to do what I do and wander around all over the place, you can't get away from it. And it's even better in front, because if I get too close, I can get away from it. I can duck out of the way, and it doesn't know what's going on. But when it's in front, it works. Again, technology you have. But what you're talking about, you have this camera. See, I got away from it. If you have this camera, on the back there's a line in. So you can run audio directly to this camera with a microphone or a little bit of a switcher there. You can run it into the camera, and then when the HDMI comes over to your switcher, you can turn on the volume or turn on the audio for that HDMI input. And now you have it directly through here. So you don't need to have something extra. If you have a phone, it's going to have that on there. You can have YouTube Studio right on your phone, and you can go live. Just go to YouTube Studio, go live, put that in a clip, and let it go live for you. It's that simple. You don't need all of the hardware that we're going to show you here. This is kind of cool, and this is really neat, and this is really helpful, but what do you need? Those 5 things. And it's as simple as this. Did that answer your question? Yeah. Any other comments or questions about that? All right. So your video sources, PTZ cameras, fixed cameras. There's a lot of people out there. There's a church. What's the church live or a church media Facebook group? There's a bunch of people on there that are fixated on fixed cameras, or small church media. That's what it's called. Now their definition of small church is very different from mine, and they talk about stages. And they talk about the band, and they talk about all the, it's great because I can take a lot of the things that they do as professional, as a professional entertainers pretty much in a lot of those, but I can take that knowledge and I've been taking it and downsizing it for what we use. But fixed cameras, webcams. You got a webcam? Bring it right in USB into your OBS, you're good to go. Now, that one actually does pretty well. It does a pretty good job in here. And so you could do something like that. You got a little camcorder with a HDMI out, you're golden. That really does well. This puts out 1080p video. I think Derek's has my other camcorder that was what we started with. All we had was one camcorder, and it was going into the switcher. And then we got one PTZ camera and a camcorder. And then we had 2 PTZ cameras. So we just kind of kept adding on as we went. But webcams work just fine. Phones do really good. I still got an iPhone 13, and I'm way behind the generations, 3 or 4 generations, but it does a really good job with video. But it all depends on what Phil was talking about. What are your expectations and budget? You got to have a plan, and you got to have a budget, and you kind of work within that. And if you can do a little bit at a time, find the pieces that you need initially, and then keep add as you go. Good audio. Audio is going to make or break your live stream. In fact, this last week the audio was just so bad when I was doing the connection with changing it to the radio, editing it down. I just couldn't use it. Something was going wrong this last week, and it's just really frustrating when that happens. So for the radio service, I just went back to 2 years ago. I was on YouTube, and we're going to use that. So one that I had already edited a couple of years ago, it was still there, and I was able to edit. So that's one of the benefits of having that remaining there available. I also keep it on my drive. Software-based streaming, again, you got to have the computer. It does most of the work for you, does all the switching for you. You can use OBS. vMix is a very good option, except now it's a subscription-based system. I was able to purchase it when I could do the one-time purchase, and so I got a kind of a cut-down version of it. But I liked vMix better than OBS because it was a little bit more intuitive for me. The difference is it's now subscription, so you're going to now pay for it every year. So OBS, if I was going to go that route, I'd probably go OBS now and learn it. But they're very similar to each other. There are other things out there. You're going to add in the graphics and the text and everything else is going to do that right through the software. And then you can stream online right from there. It'll suck in things like NDI, and there's other kind of things that you can add to it. And so it works out really well. And Derek is going to demonstrate that for you. Hardware-based streaming, you got to have that dedicated hardware. It's really nice that way. You got switchers that do all the work. They do the encoder, but you can also get external encoders. So especially some of the higher end, sometimes they'll have the external encoders and they're separate from the switchers. Controllers to control your PTZ cameras. So take a look when you come back here to Donovan's class this afternoon. Take a look at the controller and all the things that one can do, and that's brand new. That just showed up here with the camera. So that's my toy that they sent me to play with the camera, and I'll be doing a review on that apparently sometime soon. But boy, that was fun to get to play with and get to know for someone like me. But it does a lot of the things for you. So be careful of getting too much. The ones that they have for sale, FoMaKo likes to put out a controller with 2 or 3 cameras that you can buy as a set on Amazon. And that's what I thought I was going to get, was that one, so I can show you. They ended up sending me the new generation from that. But they're pretty cool, and they do a lot of things for you to help you get the most out of the PTZ cameras. So somebody was talking to me about lighting and your cameras that don't have very good lighting. Because the controller can help you adjust it right then and there live. So while you're in the middle. Now you got to be careful. If you go the wrong way, it'll go all of a sudden black. And you go, oops, I got to bring it all the way back. So you got to get to know it. but it can get you into trouble, but it can also get you out of trouble. And it helps you simplify operations. So that allowed us to pretty much put together a nice little checklist that you say, push this button, push this button, push this button, add in this little piece of information, and you're good to go. And it's been very helpful for us with volunteers. The big thing for us is those pieces of equipment are designed for what they do. And my computer likes that a lot better. So I can use an iPad or a really, I got a bunch of used computers now around here. This is how I've saved money with my upgrades, is I upgrade to a computer that I picked up on the Wisconsin online surplus auction. I've got probably, Pastor's got one of those. This one here's one. I got one upstairs. You got one of those. They're all over the place, and I got one at home. But they're really, really helpful. It's a good way to save a little bit of money. Just be careful what you do and what you get. A lot of them don't have any kind of operating system or hard drive or SSD in them for security reasons for their part. Sometimes they have them, and that's one of the ones I pick up. But it does reduce the independence on the computer. I don't need to have a super powerful computer. If you want to see what kind of computer you need to have to really do that, Derek will show you his. He brought his in. It's more than I'm going to deal with, because I've built my own computers years ago, and just because I wanted to, and I'm not going to get to that point. Streaming services, yep, we're going to use YouTube. Facebook, you already talked about some of the limitations on Facebook, and Facebook does shut people down a lot faster than YouTube does, at least from what I keep seeing on on the different channels. Streaming to your website, very difficult, actually. You're better off to put a link from your website to wherever you're streaming to otherwise. And dedicated streaming providers. Yeah.
You just have to have an embed code from that.
Basically, but you got to have somebody to manage that, especially since it's every single time. And then you're so it becomes more than, unless you got somebody who likes to do that, that's great. Yeah.
I mean, there are some services, the embed code will be the same every week. I will say our church uses Vimeo. We send it to Vimeo. Vimeo shows it on Vimeo. Vimeo will also send it out to YouTube and Facebook for us. So there are services that will you send it to them, they send it to everywhere for you, which is super useful. Some of those are paid, some of them are free. It just depends. Vimeo is wonderful because it also archives things for us, but it's fairly expensive.
Yeah, and that's why I decided not to. That was the only reason. I like Vimeo. It does do a good job. And some of them you pay for it, and they seem to be clunky. They're really hard to deal with sometimes. At least on the user end, somebody looking at what's going on. But we just go to YouTube, and then we link it to our Facebook page, so that people who don't want to go to YouTube just go to Facebook, and then it links them to the video anyways. Internet. We were fortunate that a couple years ago, Frontier Fiber came by, and we were able to go from Spectrum, which only allowed 10 megabits up at the cost that we were willing to pay, without going to a business plan, which is going to be way too much. So Frontier Fiber came by, we saved a little bit of money, and now we're going 500 up and 500 down, and we're really happy with that. They actually brought in a router that was also a Wi-Fi. It's an Eros router, Wi-Fi, and it's kind of a mesh. You got one back there. It's just a little white box on the back there. Those are great. They gave us one. I picked up a couple more. We are actually, in practice yesterday, we were actually going through that wirelessly to the router and then out live. We decided not to do that. You're better off to stay wired, because you get a room full of people like we were talking about, and you saw me change out my box here for my microphone. Well, the reason for that was an older system, that those frequencies are no longer used for this purpose. They've been handed off to cell phone companies, and so all of you people in here with cell phones kept blocking my signal. It was working fine yesterday. But we had the other one of our regular ones down here. He handed me that, and I plugged in, and we're back in business. Having backups. little things just do hiccup. You get these hiccups all the time. Find a backup, find a way to work around it. Those are nice to have. And that's what I was talking about. Testing, wiring, backups. Choosing the right setup for your church. We've already talked about that quite a bit. Room layout has a lot to do with it. We put wings on ours, and suddenly we have dead spaces. And guess what's in the dead space? Our organist. She can't hear herself playing on the organ from where the speakers are, which drives her crazy, makes it difficult for her, she wants to crank things up. I'm trying to crank things down on the other side, and that was part of our problem this last week, was something was out of sync, and it wasn't working very well. The volunteers that you have, I think the battery's going dead on there. Volunteers that you have, yep. There we go, technology. I'm pretty much done anyways. So yeah, make sure that you know what's going on. Make sure that you are aware of what's going on. The technology is great, but if you rely too heavily on the technology, you're missing the point of why you're here. And it's all about the ministry. Take a look at what's going on around here. Over here I have several different versions of HDMI extenders, an NDI converter, so going from the camera through the network via NDI, which is a kind of a new technology for a lot of people, but getting that back into a switcher that only uses HDMI. That's what this is for. SDI converters. Anybody using SDI BNC connectors? Okay. And SDI is great for long distances. You can talk to Donovan about it. He's a firm believer in them. So this is all you need then to get it back to HDMI. And they're not that expensive. So that camera over there has SDI as one of the out. It just so happens that this video switcher has SDI input, so it's great. You can go from one to the other. The video switcher that's back in the back room for the software does not have SDI, so they would have to have a converter, and that's all it takes. But that might help you get things through. So like I said, for me, using the Ethernet extender, that allows me to send video to other places within the church, or it would allow me to do other things depending on what I'm doing. I have an Ethernet extender actually going from this side to that side for the one PTZ camera I have sitting on this side of the church upstairs, and you can see that when you go up there. And that allows me to bring it directly into there. And that was out there before I wanted to get into SDI and before NDI even showed up. So I'd set that up there. That's been now going for 3 or 4 years. We do turn ours off. So we have a way of turning everything on and everything off just for that fact. But once in a while, cameras stay on. And that they can wear out. All right. With that in mind, I'm not seeing are the pizzas here yet?
He took the cart up. I think he's getting them.
Okay.
I just heard the door open, so he might be coming down.
They might be here pretty soon. So we'll take the time to have some pizzas for lunch. They'll be here shortly. And if you have any questions, we're gonna shut down the live stream here fairly soon. But any other comments or questions before we shut down for lunch?
Otherwise, if you want, he said about introducing them.
Oh, yeah, we can do that. We got a little bit of time. All right. Yeah, good idea. So Phil's already done a lot of talking, but he's going to do the audio upstairs. And I'm going to ask him to work with Colleen. Colleen has a workflow for you to see. And she's going to bring that up on the TV upstairs. So while you're upstairs and have a little bit of time, talk to her about setting up a workflow and how she put together the. It's great. This is how I talk. This is how I explain things. So I'm sitting there explaining this to her, and she's scribbling notes like mad. I hope she's keeping with me. She ended up putting together a pretty cool checklist, and that was super. Derek is going to be over here, and we'll break up just before or just after we get back from lunch. He's going to be back here in the corner doing the software. You already heard about Phil, a little bit of his background. What's your background, Derek?
I'm a science instructor down at Kettle Moraine Lutheran High School in Jackson, Wisconsin. I've been there since 2019. And as part of my co-curriculars, I oversee the video team, which is the student group that does the live streaming. And most of what we do is live streaming chapel, but we'll live stream other events throughout the school. Homecoming is a big week for us, so we'll live stream from the gym, which is just an ad hoc setup. We just grab what we can, and I'm always thinking ahead, like using my budget. What can I use to make that homecoming live stream easier? So I just bought the M800. Is that what it's called? That switcher that we were talking about?
The K800.
K800.
Yeah.
Looking forward to using that, and some of the crazier things we've done would be like outside stuff, streaming football games and soccer games and cross country, which I don't think really has business being live streamed, but the cross country coach really likes the grade school meet being live streamed, so we do our best.
Do you use those like GoPros?
There you go. No, well, there's a way, I'll talk about it, that you can just bring in cell phone footage, you can just do it over, sometimes it's not the best because of the coverage, but you could just bring in a camera over cell phone data.
I tell you, outdoor stuff is really dangerous with PTZs. They don't necessarily like going outdoors. I tried to do that one day, and all of a sudden the sun was out, and went, I don't have a video at all. I mean, it was just blew it right out. Thank you. Donovan, our guy that's been keeping me squared away with the video today.
Donovan Wagey, currently now the audiovisual director at Wisconsin Lutheran High School down in Milwaukee. Just started there about a month ago. Prior to that, am a teacher, went through MLC, got really big into the video club stuff there, worked for the department on the college campus and helped replace a lot of the equipment, maintain a lot of the equipment. Kind of hit COVID right prior to graduating and ended up doing a few full church setups during that time and helping out with churches. And then since then was up in Eagle River, Wisconsin 1 year teaching up there, and they built a new church while I was up there, so I got to kind of be a part of the team, be a part of the incoming tech for that. And then last 4 years was at St. Peter in Weyauwega, Wisconsin as a tech director and teacher, where I was also oversaw some building projects, so all things networking as well in that capacity. But now God kind of brought me back into the AV realm as AV director, where I get to focus on all things live streaming and sound and light production at the high school level, and just like Derek, work with a team of high schoolers on running all the different events that we put on.
Excellent. And then we got John here, who kind of just doing a little bit of everything here, but what do you got for?
So I am actually a mechanical engineer, and I'm a member at St. Peter's in Schofield here. And I with my job at work, I got involved in doing some AV. Actually, I ran a conference for my corporation, and I went to a hotel down in Chicago, and I got the AV budget or the AV quote, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't pay the money to pay somebody to do it. So I learned and brought in a team of engineers to do that. But that's how I got into it. And then of course with COVID and just really had some great people to work with, to learn from. And so I've just enjoyed putting together the system, helping people, looking at it from a lot of different angles and directions, and how to really think through.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for all those guys for stepping up and helping me out with this. I'm going to say farewell to our live stream folks at this point, and we're going to have lunch, and we do have, we'll put public, we'll make the afternoon streams public here in a little bit. So if there's people out there looking and want to figure out how to get to those will be a little bit iffy, because they're going to get to the live stream when they get to it in the middle of their demonstration. So that'll be kind of interesting for those